It's the Moto RAZR Plus versus the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4. And finally, here in the United States, we have some competition in the flippable, foldable market that people overseas have had for a couple of years now, as the RAZR Plus brings us some of the features that those import devices have had for a couple of years here to the United States, as we've been limited to the Flip 4. And Samsung knows this. They know that this is dated at this point. You see all those leaks now about the Flip 5 leaks. Samsung's trying hard to fight him because the harder they fight the leaks, the more it seems like they were intentional. But they want people to know that the Flip 5 is going to have a larger external display. They want people to see that early and say, hold on, I know this looks ancient next to the RAZR Plus, but please hold on, we have something coming. And there are still some advantages that I think the Flip 4 has. We'll talk about them. And the hinge philosophy that the two of these devices have are a big departure from each other. And I do believe that that's going to carry forward into the Flip 5, so at least some of that will still apply. So let's talk about those hinges, because I think people misunderstood me on my video when I was not really complaining about the Moto hinge, but I just want you to know that if you've used something like a Flip 4 or a Fold 4, it's a significant departure. It feels a lot different. I don't mean it's cheap. Does it mean I think it's going to fail tomorrow? No, I don't think so. It might be solid, but it is a significant difference between the two in feel. If you told me, hand on heart, that I had to pick one of these two hinges that has to last for the next 3 years, no matter what, I would pick the Flip 4. It feels more robust. It feels more solid. It's just as sturdy. It can articulate and hold in multiple positions. It's an even amount of pressure that I'm putting across the entire fold every time, whereas I don't quite get that experience on the RAZR Plus. However, if you told me there was a phone I had to use for 3 years and enjoy for 3 years, the answer is undoubtedly the RAZR Plus, because I absolutely love this phone. I have been using it. My SIM is still in it. It is my favorite phone at the moment, and I just absolutely love it for a couple of the reasons that I'll go over in a moment, but mostly the experience that it provides and the design. It's just fantastic. I mean, look at this thing. Sleek, nice, thinner design than you get over here on the Flip 4, which is chunkier. It's a smaller footprint, but the device itself is wider, so that's not, or sorry, it's thicker, not wider, which we'll talk about in a moment. So we talked about the hinges there, a little sturdy over here. The internal displays, or the surface area, is what I want to go over next, because even though on paper, I believe it's a 6.7-inch internal display for the Flip 4 and 6.9-inch on the RAZR Plus. Doesn't sound like a lot, 0.2 of an inch. However, the result is a lot different, because this is a wider display. It's a wider display, and you get more of a regular app experience on here. This is taller. That's personal preference. Some people like the taller displays and aspect ratios. I happen to not like it as much. I like a wider display. Things like TikTok struggled early on the Flip 4. I think they came up with a solution for that, but you weren't able to see entire TikToks on the Flip 4, stuff like that, whereas on the RAZR Plus, that's really not an issue. But even though on paper it doesn't sound like much, you can put them side by side here. It's a significant difference between these two devices and internal displays. 165 hertz on the Moto Plus, 120 on the Flip 4, a 1080p on both. So that's not going to be something that really makes the difference. But if you do want a slightly faster or snappier feeling experience with that 165 hertz refresh rate, then the Moto Plus is for you. But overall, decent panels. I heard LG made the panel for the RAZR Plus. Fantastic job. And then, of course, Samsung panels. Never a complaint to be heard there. External displays. Well, I mean, not much of a competition between these two. The Moto has a fantastic external display, completely usable, great app experience. Like I said, I treat it like the second display on the LG Wing. You could do a lot here. Social media scrolls, text messages, WhatsApp, Twitter, email, stuff just works. Slack on here even. I've sent Slack messages. You can watch video on the external display if you really want to. 144 hertz. Gets plenty bright as well, which is really good. So a fully usable experience, or at least enough that you get the sense of what you need to do. You do a social media scroll or an Instagram scroll on here, it saves you from opening up that internal display. You don't feel like you're getting cheated. Over here, it's more of a disconnect device, right? Wear it with a smartwatch. You're only really going to get the individual notifications. That's it. Some widgets, music control, apps, some timer stuff. you're going to see the weather. But otherwise, that's all you're going to get for the Flip Fold, for the Flip 4 as it stands right now on this device. So just keep that in mind. Cameras. The advantage is going to go to Samsung with the cameras. Moto's never really focused on cameras. They did a better job. If you look at my initial review, I think I have some camera shots up. I'm certainly going to in the full review of this device. Not bad, though. They are a little dark. They're not as soft as Moto cameras typically have gotten, so a decent job. And while these aren't the flagship cameras, everyone complains that foldables don't get flagship cameras. That's really not the focus of these devices. The Samsung cameras on the Flip 4 do a really good job, and you benefit from all the computational stuff that you get on the Samsung side that you really don't get on the Moto side, because that's really not their focus. However, if they save that camera stuff and put it into the design of this thing, then I'll take that trade, because this is fantastic to hold and to carry. Wireless charge faster on here. It's like 5-watt wireless charge on your RAZR Plus. Is almost not. It's like just, oh, we put it in there, have it. 30-watt. It's faster. That's fine. But its battery life is going to be comparable because of the power that's in both of these. It's the same chip. It's a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 is in both of these, which is good because you're going to need that battery life. Battery drain on both is about the same. So throughout the day, you're going to notice some depletion. However, if you just wail on either one of these, you're not going to have a problem. I think I was able to get 2 hours of screen on time just scrolling social media on here this morning, and that was before I even got to 80%, I believe. So in use, they'll both be fine, but depending on your area, depending on Wi-Fi, depending on your 5G connectivity, how close you are, 4G, how many times the modem is switching back and forth, you're going to notice some drain there. However, both batteries are good, and that's because even though I think that the battery on the RAZR Plus is slightly bigger, larger, you're both going to be fine on battery because of the technology in there with those chips. So that's not an issue. Performance is going to be fine. Software is where you really start to notice a difference, and it becomes personal preference. You know, some people don't like Samsung One UI. I happen to like it a lot. You know what you're getting with Samsung. It's going to be, I believe, the same amount of years. I mean, obviously one less now because the Flip 4 is a little older. Same amount of years of support promised, but what's delivered is going to be different. You know you're going to get your software update with Samsung. It's going to be once a month. It's going to be there. You know, they may delay. They may be slow with sometimes they may delay releases when there's problems. But you know what you're going to get. And I think One UI 5.1 is the best software out there at the moment. The optimization is snappy. They have done a great job, even on older devices, with One UI optimization. And I think it's just really great. It's the best skin of Android, I think, out there at the moment. But some people might want a more stock experience, which is where the Moto device comes in, because this is kind of like your Pixel experience. If you want a Pixel-esque experience with the UI and Material U and all the rest of it, but you don't want the frustrations of Pixel hardware, which is a lot of people, then Moto's going to be your thing. They add slight things like the Moto gestures and some of the swipe downs and stuff they add, but it's not a significant skinning of Android. They're promising updates now. You know, they've had problems in the past, and they've kind of gotten a little bit better with them. My Motorola Think phone has done well with updates so far. I think it's going to be bi-monthly. That's not that huge a deal. But what is a big deal is if, you know, Android 14 comes out and they're a year late. You know, that's been their MO over the last couple of years. They're very, very late getting you upgraded versions of Android, if you get them at all. And they typically have delivered them. They've just been significantly late. So just keep that in mind. If the latest and greatest Android update is kind of one of your deciding factors, perhaps hold off. Even if you don't want to Flip 4 because of the display and all the rest of it, that's fine. But hold off perhaps and see what the Flip 5 has to offer, because I think software upgrades and functionality and just software in general, the nod is going to go to Samsung. With that being said, that's going to move aside. I'll wait for the Flip 5. I'll wait a reserve judgment. But in the meantime, the RAZR Plus is the Flip we needed. It is the Flip competition the American market sorely deserved, and we should have had for a while now. And it is a fantastic, fun device that, despite the couple flaws that it has, it's still in my pocket, is going to be in my pocket. I'm rocking it without a case just because it's that cool. Really great phone. And to me, if you had to ask, the technology between the Fold 4, you know, the bigger folds, and these smaller clamshell flips, which one is going to eventually win and be the predominant market share, to me, this is where it's at. And when Apple comes out with theirs, I think it's going to be something like this, because this takes the technology and basically the screen real estate we're used to and compacts it down into something that we can carry that's really nice to hold, and they're sleek and they're awesome, and you get the external display. There's all kinds of things you could add in with that. I think if you give me a good flip, that'll, to me, will beat a good foldable every day of the week. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, links to both of these will be in the description. $1,000 on both. That's why we didn't really go over that. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.